Good morning and welcome to Listen In, Community, Conversations, Connection. I'm your host, Pam Holland, and you're listening to Tacoma Radio, WOWD 94.3 FM. For many of us, the ability to slow down and truly listen to our own inner guidance is an untapped resource. On this show, our guests will be sharing many powerful ways that they listen in to their own inner wisdom, and as a result, are more able to be in the present moment. Kaira Jewel, thank you so much for coming out on this blustery day. And today, I'm here with Kaira Jewel Lingo, who's going to share with us some of the unique ways that she's had opportunities to listen in her life. So, Kaira Jewel, why don't you start by just telling us, what does listening in mean to you?
First of all, thank you for having me on this show. Wonderful that you have a focus on this. To me, listening in means coming back to myself. Taking time to really be there for myself and connect with what I'm actually experiencing. With a large part of my life dedicated to meditation and mindfulness and spiritual practice, that's really been the heart of it, has been listening in. That if I don't really know what's happening inside of me, I can't live my life very fully, very skillfully, very deeply, because I'm out of touch with how I feel and what I know.
And you have had some, I would say, rather unique opportunities to listen in. Can you share with our listeners your path?
Sure. I became a Buddhist nun in the tradition of the teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese monk who now lives in France, in Plum Village. I was part of a monastic community of many hundred sisters and brothers practicing engaged mindfulness, engaged Buddhism.
And how long were you in that practice?
I was a nun for 15 years.
And when did you leave that?
Spring of 2015.
Okay. And you and I met in a creativity class. Maybe it had been about a year after that.
About 9 months.
Yeah. And I was just struck by your absolute enchantment with life. And if I could share a story from our class, we were in a creativity class with a woman named Nicole, and one of the things that we were doing was we were working with makeup to make art, or to be creative, not necessarily to make art, but to just tap into our creativity. And Kaira Jewel was like an 8-year-old with her mom's makeup, playing with the makeup, and it was so joyful to watch. It was just so much fun to watch that it made me feel like an 8-year-old also. What do you find gets in the way of you listening in?
Well, packing my schedule too full, not giving me myself enough space to breathe and have downtime in between activities. So not saying no.
Does that resonate with anyone else out there?
And I guess just forgetting how very important it is to take the time and how much actually can happen when you listen in. that doesn't happen. Like, you really want certain things to happen in your life, but if you don't listen in, so it's like you have to go backwards a little bit in order to go forward.
Okay.
And so sometimes I know for myself, I just feel like, I know where I want to get to, and so I'm just heading there. But actually, if I just stop and listen in, I'll actually accomplish or realize or experience much more fully what it is that I want, rather than when I charge head on. Because the listening in is kind of like going up to a mountain peak and where you can see clearly all around.
Oh, what a great analogy.
And then you kind of see the territory clearly. You can see the paths and this little map. It's clearer from that height, from that perspective. And then you go back down and you have a better sense of your direction because you've pulled back to see the whole thing. So rather than getting sucked into, I just need to keep doing, going, which you could end up going in the completely wrong direction because you haven't taken the perspective to say, wait a minute, let me recalibrate.
Right.
And so that what's an obstacle to me is when I forget how important it is. Like, it's the essence of actually going in the direction I want to go and living my life the way I want to live it is stop. Well, every time I go on a retreat, because I lead retreats, but I also go on retreats, I always have this feeling of like, oh, I need this so much. Like, I don't know how much I need it until I stop. I don't realize how much pressure and strain my body and my mind is under until I really pause. Then it's like everything goes, oh, it just sort of releases. So that's a general experience. The deeper experience I had, it wasn't an experience of figuring out I was going too fast. It was just a moment of huge transition in my life when I was trying to decide if I should leave my monastic life and return to lay life. And what was very helpful for me in that process was several longer silent retreats that I did each fall at a retreat center in the Insight tradition in Massachusetts. So they offer 3-month silent retreats, and you can also do 6 weeks, just half of them. And those times were just so important. It was, although I had been practicing, by then I had been practicing full-time mindfulness as a nun for about 13 years, but I had never done a silent retreat of that length. Completely in silence, no writing, no reading, no, texting, no email, no computer, just meditating, sitting meditation, walking meditation, eating in silence with other people, but really no talking except for 2 interviews with teachers twice a week.
So you did that more than once for a period of 3 months?
I did, I think 2 or 3 times for 3 months, and then I did this for like 4 or 5 years in a row, and the other times were for 6 weeks.
And this was a part of you making that really, for you, a really huge decision, I would imagine.
Yes. And so that experience of being that still, of stopping that much, of really disengaging from all of my relationships, all of my work, all of my, basically all of the ways that I got an identity of who I was. The silence allowed me to touch things inside of myself that I'd never been in touch with. I felt like I became intimate with myself more than ever before. And there were things that could arise because everything else around me was so still. I wasn't needed to do or be or, accomplish anything. I could just allow. It was like a fast. When you fast from food or, a lot of toxins have a chance to come out
Mm-hmm.
because you're not taking in things. So it's like when you fast on words and input, a lot of things from your past, from in dreams or just things begin to arise and you can release them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a feeling of being very light. So it wasn't that I was going too fast and then I stopped, but I just decided I really, in order to see my way through this difficult decision, I need to create space.
Yes.
And really to slow down and just let myself just be with whatever's arising. And it wasn't that I came out of those retreats with an answer.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't give me an answer.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did give me, which was very reassuring, was, before I went on that first retreat, I was so anxious to figure out what should I do. This is such a huge decision. I don't want to make a mistake. Projecting all these things. I could be throwing my life away. And so I was desperate for an answer.
Mm-hmm.
And what the silence gave me was the ability to be okay with not having an answer.
That's huge.
Which was, complete liberation from that, it was the needing to have an answer that was so painful because I couldn't find one.
Right.
And when that was released, then I was like, oh yes, okay, I have this question, and at some point, there was this faith that at some point I would find an answer, or, I would know what the next step should be. And sure enough, it did eventually happen. I mean, it took 4 years, but, and it was something I really felt I could trust. It wasn't a decision that came from my mind, from pros and cons, from rationalizing and comparing. And no, it was a much deeper knowing of like, okay, this, and you never know if it's the right decision or
right.
wrong,
right.
and that's not really the point. It's like you make the best choice with what you have at your disposal at that moment.
Right.
But it was something I trusted. I wasn't worried anymore. I just went forward with this new direction of my life.
Yeah. This is WOWD-LP Tacoma Park, and I'm Pam Holland, and this is Listen In Show. So, for those of you who are intrigued by the idea of silent retreats, there is an opportunity here in our area. There's a place called Dayspring, where you can do just basically a sort of a 3 to 4 hour silent retreat, and I've done those a number of times, and I can put that on the website at listeninshow.org. And again, this is WOWD-LP Tacoma Park, 94.3 FM. And I am Pam Holland. This is Listen In Show, and I'm speaking with Kaira Jewel, who was a nun for 15 years. And is now living more in the world and also sharing some of what you learned, I believe, in some meditations in retreats, yes, which we can also I can also share with our listeners on the website.
Great. Aware that I'm breathing in as I breathe in. I'm being aware that I'm breathing out as I breathe out. That's already a listening in because I'm not focusing externally through my eyes, through my ears, through my senses. I'm just feeling something that's happening in this moment. So when I feel my breath, I might begin to notice, there's tension in my body, which I wouldn't have realized if I hadn't sort of turned my attention inward. Or I might realize, I'm actually really tired. I should get some rest. But I could be, cut off from that experience if I hadn't turned my attention. So the breath has a capacity. It's kind of a diagnostic tool where when you connect with your breath, you connect with your whole body, your life force. So you get an insight as you feel your breath as to how you're doing. If your breath is shallow, if your breath is deep, if it's and it's not about changing your breath, but it's just about paying attention to it.
Just noticing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you notice, let's say you notice a sensation in your body that one might label unpleasant, what would be your guidance to our listeners?
Yeah. So that's part of life. We're going to experience plenty of unpleasant things as well as pleasant things. So when we listen in and we experience an unpleasant sensation in the body, we can be aware that it's unpleasant. We can say, oh, this is unpleasant. And then we can notice what's our reaction to unpleasant. So usually we jump straight away to, this needs to go away. What can I do to get rid of this? But if we can break it down and see that it's actually two things. One is there's an unpleasant experience, and separate from that is our reaction to the unpleasant experience, which doesn't have to be one of aversion. Usually it is, but when we're listening in, we can notice, oh, this is unpleasant, and am I feeling aversion to it? If so, what does that feel like? How does that impact the unpleasant emotion? Usually, say you have headache or a backache, aversion to that pain usually causes more tightening, more tension, more pain, ultimately. So if we can recognize that that's the pattern we usually go into, then when we encounter an unpleasant experience, we can know that it's unpleasant, and then just see how can we open to that experience versus closing down to it, pushing it away. How can we just be interested in it and say, oh, what is unpleasant? What is this like? How does it feel? Is it this, unchanging experience that's just there all the time? Mostly not. It's shifting. It's sometimes more intense, sometimes less intense. It's not there all the time. But when we have aversion to it, we make it into this monolithic block.
Right.
My back pain.
Monster was what the word that came to me. It's a monster.
Yeah, and we give it this
power,
force that it doesn't really have.
Right.
If we don't label it and then react to our labeling of it, we can actually engage with it in a very different way that's maybe more creative, more fluid, has more possibilities. So it's not that by being with an unpleasant sensation that it goes away, but our frustration, our pain, our we call it, we say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. So the pain may still be there, but the suffering, we can reduce that a great deal by our attitude towards the original pain.
The way we hold it.
Exactly. And the other thing that's important when we encounter unpleasant is to identify if it's from the body or from the mind. It's important when pain arises to say, is this physical pain? Is this mental pain? Because we can have physical pain and then create mental pain out of the physical pain.
Yes.
So I was doing this just yesterday. I had a terrible stomach ache from something that I ate, and it was really uncomfortable. And I very rarely have, experiences like that. And I was like, okay, this is just physical pain. I was just aware of that. This is just stomach, sharp sensations in my stomach. It's not, fear. It's not, it doesn't need to become mental pain on top of physical pain. And sometimes you'll recognize, oh, this is mental pain, not physical at all. And so then you have a different way to relate to that. But it's important to know what is the source of the pain.
And I imagine our breath could help us in those situations as well.
Very much. Yeah. Breathing with your pain. Breathing in, I'm here for my pain. Breathing out, it's okay that you're here. I'm not going to push you away. You can talk to it. Right. And you can have that be riding on your breath. This dialogue of kindness, of curiosity, of interest, of opening to. You can even massage your pain with your breath. You can send your breath down to a physical area that's painful. You can send your breath to your heart if you have some emotional heartache.
Mm-hmm.
You can breathe with it, and it massages the pain, and it can soothe it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I like that phrase, massage the pain.
Mm-hmm.
Massage whatever's hurting.
Yeah.
Looping back, you shared with me a story of one way in which your father helped you to learn to listen to your own wisdom.
Yes.
And that was when you were looking for a college.
Yes.
You want to say a little bit about that?
Sure. So I had applied to a few colleges as a senior, and I had gotten accepted to one in California. I was living in Georgia, in Atlanta, and I had also gotten accepted to one in the Northeast. And so the Northeast was, of course, closer to where we lived on the Southeast in Atlanta. And but I wanted to know what my dad thought about which one I should choose, because I was attracted to both schools, but I really wanted to go to the one in California because I liked sunny weather. And the one in the Northeast would be lots of snow and ice and rain and cold. But, I kind of felt some sense of loyalty, or, not wanting to displease my father. So I asked him, which one do you think I should go to? And he said, I want you to decide. I'm not going to give you my opinion. And so that was, I've always been grateful to him for that, because it gave me permission to really listen in and feel, what do I really want to do?
Mm-hmm.
If my dad's not giving me any, pressure one way or the other, what do I really want?
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to go to the one in California, even though it was, furthest from him.
Mm-hmm.
He was very happy for me.
And he did not suggest that you make a list of pros and cons.
No, right. He just said, you feel what you want to do.
Uh-huh.
So it was kind of also, a real empowerment to say, you know what's right for you.
Yes.
I don't know what's right for you.
Yes.
So you should make that decision. And don't depend on me. Don't look to me for.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you were one of the lucky ones. Not everyone has parents who are that way.
Yes.
Those of you who are, cherish them and say thank you to them.
Mm-hmm.
And those of you who might feel that something's missing there, you need to provide that for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You need to give yourself that awareness that you're the one who can make the right decisions for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an interview with Desiree Bayonet earlier where she spoke about a situation where she actually had to go against what everyone else was suggesting and listen to her own inner wisdom.
Right.
So we all have different paths in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts for our listeners, or a gentle challenge that you might like to offer?
Well, one exercise I thought I'd share, because I love to work with children.
Oh, great, yeah.
Is something that can help children to listen in.
Uh-huh.
And so I often use a bell of mindfulness. You can also use a chime. And if you have a smartphone, it's very easy to get these sounds on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can just play the sound of a bell.
Or even do a couple of spoons.
Or some spoons. But you want something that has a resonance for a little while.
Uh-huh.
Because the thing that's nice for younger people as well as older people, but if you have children or have young people in your life, is to make a sound of this bell and invite them to just listen until they can't hear the sound anymore. If you are, working with a group of children, you could have them put their hands in the air and then play the chime or the sound of the bell, and ask them to listen all the way till it's finished, and then put their hand down when they don't hear even a tiny sound anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very kind of embodied centering practice.
Great. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. And I had forgotten that you had some tips for working with children, and we all have that child inside who wants to play and wants to be nurtured. So find ways to get a chime. And perhaps I'll put one at the end of the recording.
Wonderful.
So that everybody will have an opportunity to try that out. Well, thank you so very much, Kaira Jewel, for coming today. It's been wonderful speaking with you.
Thank you.
And this is WOWDLP, Tacoma Radio. And to top off this morning's show, I have a special, very short interview with Sarah Wayland of Guiding Exceptional Parents. Sarah is a care navigator for families, and particularly families with children with special needs. She also practices RDI, Relationship Development Intervention. Here's what Sarah has to say about listening in.
Hi, Pam. For me, listening in is about being with other people and taking the time to really, truly pay attention to what they are saying. So not asking questions, not trying to tell them what you think, not trying to teach them something, but just being with them and really trying to understand their world. So really, truly listening to the other person and figuring out what is their world? Where are they coming from? So that's what listening in is for me.
And what about when you're all alone? Do you have any ways of listening in to your own inner guidance?
Usually the way I listen in is to write.
Great.
So what I do is when I am having trouble thinking through something or understanding where I'm feeling, writing is what makes it possible for me to think through things and really, truly get at what's going on underneath. So very often, if I'm just thinking through things, I can hide from it. But I find when I write that very often I can really get to the core of what's going on.
Great, great. And do you have any kind of regular practice of writing?
No.
Have you ever had a regular practice of writing?
No,
journaling
I really haven't.
Or anything like that?
No,
okay.
No. I have to tell you, my writing is often on listservs, and they tend to be places where people are asking for advice or I'm asking for advice. And what I often find is when I'm asking for advice, just the act of writing out what I'm thinking through helps me be more clear about what's going on. And sometimes I will write that and realize I figured out the answer.
Right. So you definitely are able to listen in to your own inner guidance by writing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's one that I don't think I had thought about, even though I think it's also true for me.
Huh.
So thank you so much for that insight.
You're welcome.